Welcome back to Taking Stock, where we get to talk to experts in our small business community about the common challenges they are facing in their business and how to solve them in a way that leads to better businesses, more productive teams, and stronger communities. As always, I'm your host, Deke Bowman, head of product here at Koble. Today, we're here with Gary Yoder, one of the third generation owners at Stoll Industries, where you all manufacture metal products range from metal chutes in the kitchen to outdoor kitchens, and kind of the origin story is fireplace doors and screens. Thank you so much for joining us, Gary. I'm excited to talk with you and dig into your business culture, how you tackle the challenges that are inherent in the manufacturing business and ecosystem, especially as the world changes in that space. But what I'd like to do is just get started at the beginning. How did you get involved with Stoll?
Absolutely. So just glad to be here. Thanks for having us speak, and love to talk about our story and who we are and family and all. So Stoll started in 1969 when Mr. Bill Stoll Sr. moved here from Virginia Beach with his family. And at that point, he had been doing some farming and all, moved to this community, actually bought a property that we're on now.
Okay.
And it had a really unusual fireplace. And so at that point, they were burning some fires in the evening just around the home there. And he wanted a screen to kind of protect the sparks from hitting the living room and all. Couldn't find a screen that would fit, and ended up had a little welder in his shop and made a little screen with his sons and put it on. A neighbor saw it. He wanted one, of course, and the business was started all from a need from his own home. But that was back in 1969, and then of course a lot has changed since then. But that kind of put us in as Stoll Fireplace.
It's kind of funny. You don't have to go very far to learn about how it's often our problems that we face that launch a business to serve communities. Because we're all unique in different ways, but we often deal with common problems, I think.
Yeah, no, it's so good. And I think the local newspaper then did an article on Grandpa that the headline said the mother of necessity creates new business in Abbeville. So it's a core of who we are, and a lot of what we've built and developed from them have come from needs, whether personally or from a dealer that says, hey, what if you would make this or that? So that has continued to come with us all the way through the third generation.
That's amazing. Can you tell a little bit about the customers you serve today or over the generations? Have they changed? Has it expanded and grown? Yeah. So give us like that background. You all got started with that first screen, but how did it grow out from there? And who is it that you're serving with that?
The Grandpa started serving the local hardware stores, and then found a few more in the Carolinas and Virginia. And then we primarily were built on a brick and mortar dealership level. So we were the manufacturer. We would sell to a dealership. That has continued to grow. We started going to some shows early on, looking for more dealers and sales teams. That's grown now to over 2,000 brick and mortar dealerships, showrooms throughout the U.S. and Canada. So extremely grateful and to see the growth and the interest in people bringing our product to their showrooms. We currently now are moving into distribution and some international partnerships. So we see some exciting things going forward, but our core business is through the brick and mortar showroom.
Amazing. So, and you're largely distributing to like local independent hardware stores or a home store type thing. So, if I buy a house or I'm building a house, I might go to my shop and I would see a Stoll product right there.
So we have three main categories now, which we can talk about some more, but the hearth and the fireplace side of it would be through a fireplace store that may sell chimneys, piping, stoves. So Stoll would be part of their offering. Through the outdoor living category, that might come through a patio store or maybe a grilling store or a landscaper. And then our kitchen and bath, like the range hoods and the metal cabinet doors for inside, would come through a design showroom that sells kitchens, granite, sinks and appliances in that case. So, but all through like a showroom, like a storefront brick and mortar style dealership.
Amazing. Yeah. It makes me think that, in my origin story, my parents had a hardware store for a brief time, and I worked in that hardware store.
Yep.
And there's, I think sometimes a sense where the feedback loop you don't always feel like you get to engage. But one of the things I'm hearing from you is that for your all's growth as a company and your all's product development insights, the dealer's critical. And that's the window into the customer, and their feedback drives your business.
Yes. And that is so true. And yet at the same time, the world is evolving. So you have internet, you have distribution channels that maybe do private label, you have mass merchant stores. So there's a lot of different avenues that come to us through the years. We've tried to make good decisions that honor the people that got us to where we are. The dealerships that have sown, some of them are second and third generation as well. So they knew our dads, they bought, and grandpa way back. So you try to keep growing with the times while keeping your core and who you are and the protection, the honor you give dealers. You keep that as kind of base value all the way through.
Yeah, that's great. So I'm curious, what gets you excited to go into work every day? What's the thing that drives Gary?
Look, recently I've been on, I'd say in the last 10 years, our dads have done a great job of making work bigger than us, bigger than making a profit, bigger than even the money we make. But it's about people, relationships. I love people. I work primarily in sales and the marketing and branding of our company. So I love the interaction, the friendships we create. But from a personal level, I've just, as a Christian, I realized that work is worship. Work is actually what God placed in. I may not be on the mission field, but I have found myself be in a mission field that is so hurting and at times so needy. And I'm able to encourage and support and even pray with people that I would never come to a church, or maybe I would never see a ministry option. So I think for me is that even last week we had clients here from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, New York area, spent 2 days here. We went fishing. We were able to have dinner with them and to just watch them unpack what meant the most to them. And it was really about how they felt when they were here. The love, the hope. So I think for me, I love creating and designing products. I've got an eye for design and creating colors and trends and all. I love doing that. But it really is about what you can spread with hope and love and making people feel like they're important.
That's a beautiful reframe of the whole concept of work, where people, sometimes, it's the 9 to 5, you're working for the weekend. Me and Mike, our CEO, had a whole episode around this kind of reimagining work. And this dovetails perfectly into that reimagination of seeing the actual labor of working in business, working in the market, working with people in communities is not somehow less than being a pastor or a missionary.
Yeah, I just listened to that episode actually and watched that the other day. You guys did, and great job, because that's so at the heart of who we are. Our dad, grandpa had a version of that. Our dads instilled that into us, and it feels like we're even taking that to another level of just empowering. Everyone's here for a purpose. So yeah, I appreciate you guys doing that. That was really well done.
Yeah, thank you. We appreciate that. So I would love to start out kind of some of the meat of this interview around the manufacturing challenges that you all face. So you're a growing business for sure. Given the story, the origin, and where you are today, it's wild to see the sign on the trailer in that video from your grandpa.
Yeah.
And to your facility today, it seems unbelievably.
Yeah.
And you mostly started in that fireplace and accessory space, but how did you turn that into the breadth of products you have today? So it seems like I can imagine the assembly line of a single product, but you've grown, not just in scale, but in breadth.
Yeah, that's good. As a company through the years, we've tried a lot of things. Naturally, you look at growth, you have down seasons. With the fireplace season years ago, our dads faced a little bit of the highs and the lows. So when it's cold, everyone thinks about their fireplace naturally. And when it's warm, they go outside and work on their pools or their backyards. And so they would get real slow in the summer and then swamped in the winter, and they just fought this up and down. So they were always looking for things to fill the summer. One of those projects was the metal bubblegum stands. So you have a little dispenser, candy dispensers.
Yeah.
So Stoll made thousands of those through the summers where our families would help, all the employees would, instead of making fireplace products, would come out and make bubblegum stands, truckloads of them. Just what was incredible opportunity to fill the gap of that low summer. The other thing we did was pick up on like a metal cattle catcher equipment.
Okay.
Feedlots would have need for the locking mechanism to stop the cattle and then to treat them or whatever. So they took a bunch of those products on to fill the summer. So then when the third generation started coming on, naturally there's 4 of us now that own the company. But when you have more people thinking and planning and looking at growth, we started to ask the question, okay, what else can we do? We're good with metal. We have laser cutters. We have forming machines. We do great with finishing and powder coating. But the fireplace world can be, but so big. It felt like there was a gap in what we could do with our accessories. We don't make stoves anymore, so there's limited things that we do. So we started to ask the question, what else can we do? Is it playground equipment? Is it metal? There's a lot of questions came up. One of the questions came out, what if we made metal cabinet doors to go inside the home? So everyone has a kitchen. So we made a rough, crude sample, put it into our little demo home we had here on the property, and some salespeople stayed here one night, looking at other things, saw that, and were impressed with the concept, even though it was crude and heavy. It was too heavy, it was bulky. They went back and just mentioned it to another company called Richelieu. Richelieu was currently working on a huge project in New York that needed, I forget how many levels, the high-rise condo in Central Park needed some metal cabinet doors, and our name came up because of that crude sample we had made.
Amazing.
Long story short, we got the call to join that multi-million-dollar project, and at that point we were limited. We had some capacity issues. We were small. We just felt like, okay, this is a reach, but we would love to go for it. So we signed the commitment to do that with them. They flew down. And that project forced us, with a lot of gray hair and prayer, it forced us into the kitchen and bath industry. But because of the value of that project, it allowed us to get a lot of machinery that we now needed for a lot of other projects. So that pushed us into the kitchen and bath world, which immediately just was a brand new customer base. The other avenue is the outdoor living, and that started through COVID. So we went to a show and presented a kind of a rough concept of an outdoor kitchen island where you put a grill and a refrigerator in it. And God only knew that COVID was going to happen and shut the world down. And when it came back, the outdoor patio, the room outside, was like the most important room in the home. And so that just springboarded us into the outdoor living, which is now a huge category for us. So it came from the dream of what we do and do well, the team we have. What else around the home? We love to build things around the home. That's where the families are, and we're so much about families. So I don't know where it'll all go yet. We're always dreaming about the next thing, but right now it's enough stress and
Yeah, right.
But that gives you a little idea of kind of how the development of those 3 categories.
Yeah, that's an amazing evolution, and it is kind of again, it's a strong theme in healthy, resilient businesses. There's the anti-fragile movement that comes up that this makes me think of, but it's, you have core competencies and you're like, how do my skills, how do our tools translate into other sectors, not just this narrow block, which is really, profound and brilliant.
Yeah.
So the next question I have is you've kind of already answered, but what are some of the hard moments you faced through the life of this developing, especially adding new product lines, entering new markets, the ups and downs of the economy in the life of this company? How did you navigate those changes?
That's so good. The seasonal one with the fireplace was a tough one for us as we were young. But probably when we step into the kitchen and bath world and some of these new industries, there's often a way of terminology or communication, or there's different practices and processes in that industry. We had to learn that. That was kind of, you took a fireplace process or mindset and presented it to the kitchen and bath world, and they would be like, I have no idea what you're saying. What are you talking about? Retail. One thing that I think we had to develop was people to trust us and know who we were.
Mm-hmm.
In the fireplace world, we've been there for 40 years. The kitchen and bath world is Stoll Industries, pops on the market. Okay, who are you? Well, a story to kind of give an example of that was as we took this job in New York. Okay, New York is all about business and it's cutthroat. Okay, this is a high rise that there's lawsuits and whatever. But they came to the plant, saw who we were. They trusted us because our culture is what you see is what you get. We have no name or image we're trying to create. We'll be honest with you. If we can't do something, we want to tell you. But they fell in love with us and they just trusted us immediately. Well, halfway through the process, it was about a 3-year project. It was millions of dollars with doors and all. So halfway through, one Sunday morning, the plater that we were using to put the finish on was out of Nashville. So we would make the product, send it there, then we'd come back and then we would deliver it. We got word on the news that his factory was up in flames, burned to the ground. The whole plating facility in Nashville went down. So we right away communicated that to it, but they had deadlines and there was there was threats of lawsuits. We actually got involved. There was a lawsuit placed out there on us. And we just called and told them, we were like, okay, so this is what happened. No one could stop it. No one could plan for it. Our plater burned to the ground. He's trying to open up a facility beside it. It's going to take some time. We can look for other platers, but we'd have to approve the quality. Well, a lawsuit is not going to do anything to speed the process up. Here's who we are. Here's what happened. Thankfully the lawsuit was dropped, but it was again a thing of like, okay, so Stoll is, they are who they say they are. They're not trying to cover anything. They knew about the story. They had watched it in the news as well, but it was almost like they had to, the New York way, they had to see if they could trust us. That the world wants to push and threat and scare you into doing something faster or quicker. We let them know there really wasn't anything that a lawsuit was just going to hurt us more. It wasn't going to speed up the process.
Right.
So we had to, I think part of what you're asking there is we had to kind of create history with these guys. The industry needs to learn to know who we are, that we can be trusted. Good news spreads well, bad news spreads fast as well. But people start to talk about, well, oh, you got Stoll, you can trust those guys. Here's what happened. And so I think you build trust and favor with these guys through the tough ones.
Right.
That's who we really are. Is what comes to the top is when things aren't going well and everyone's yelling at each other and there's deadlines. But I think us being able to present that in a safe, honest way, and this is where we're at. We're going to do everything in our power.
Yeah,
so that was one of them.
Yeah, that's good. It's interesting. The theme I'm catching, even as we just started, as I've heard you talk before, is the who Stoll is primary. And it's a collection of people, a community of people, a family, as you described, that happens to produce metal related products. Yeah. And you can inject another output, but the who you are defines everything.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really fascinating. I'm also up here in the Northeast. I'm in Philly, and Philly has one of our mascots for one of our sports teams is Gritty. So it speaks to the nature of business and the engagement in this part of the world. So yeah, I imagine that your response, your engagement with companies would be both curious, suspicious, and refreshing all at the same time.
Yeah.
So as you all grew and you're growing product lines, you're entering new markets, how did you manage the business? And kind of the question behind the question is, when did you decide it was time for an ERP? Like, what did you do before ERP? And then what was the tipping point and that made you all evaluate how you were working from a technology standpoint?
Everyone had ledgers years ago, so they did paper trail. And then we love to talk about the time when our dads and our mom especially, but when she was able to get the one computer in the office, and they started to put a few things on there and keep a few documents. And then pretty soon departments would share that computer. So they would go into this one office and use that computer that we had, and then we started to add a few more, but we started with software with a company called Sima. I'm not sure if you are aware of it. It's way back, but it was a very basic off the shelf. And so we were using things like for status of product, we were manually keying that in into like a date field or like an ID field. We'd put like the status of the product every night. So if someone called, we were trying to get the system where we could pull up and not have to run to the plant every time. So we did that for a while. We thought we were kind of getting by, but I remember the discussion started with custom software companies and different started to come through. I actually didn't lead that. I was early on in my stage, and I remember when EVMS, it was EVMS at that point, or ESH, however you would. But when you guys made the presentation, I think Jake and Ken both said, now when we into this process, when we sign and set to go, just know that you're going to want to get out of it about the day it's going to get really good. So the day before you bail, don't bail, because it's going to take some rebuilding. But we just could tell that we were handwriting billing materials. So we would enter a fireplace door, and Darius would spend hours taking that finished frame, writing what the glass size should be, what the screen should be, what the doors and the hinges should be. And then we would take and give them to the different departments, and they would make parts off of that. So you can imagine the human error that's involved. So 3/16 and 1/32 and all these different numbers that he's handwriting, the glass would show up 3 weeks later, and we misfigured. And so it was just so limited. And we were, of course, smaller, but looking for growth. So when we added Koble or EVMS to that point, it just like there was so much at our fingertips that we didn't even know where to start. But the biggest thing that we needed was bill of materials, creating parts lists for our different vendors to order glass, to order, powder. There's just a lot of things that then became automated. But probably one of the big ones for sales and for a service side of it is to be able to live data, pull up where it's at. You can imagine we go and look through tags to look for Deke's order, we're like, back, when do we think we'll get to that one? There was just a lot of manual processes that we realized to grow and speed up. In the fireplace world, speed is a big deal because it's cold. Everyone wants their product now. And so the faster we could produce as a company, the more orders we would, technically get. So software helped us speed that up.
That's amazing. And it also seems like that from an internal processes, ERP transformed how you all even probably thought about work, in terms of who you needed to do what, how you're able to predict your customers. What are some of those internal processes that changed your everyday workflow? Down to the manufacturing process, maybe. Assume I'm a sixth grader who doesn't know. I'm the nephew that showed up in town. What do you do, Gary?
Yeah, that's really good. A lot of what would happen too is our sales teams and even the dealers would ask, what did I sell last year? Can you kind of give me a report? Well, we had nothing. We could try to pull some hard copies and kind of get an example of even what we sold. I remember our dad saying, when they would get through the end of the year, they would be so curious when they went to the accountant, did they make any money this year? You kind of, it was so little bookkeeping was able to be done outside of, the manual transactions. So EBMS or Koble immediately brought so much reporting that we weren't used to. So now reps could see who their top performing dealers were, and dealers could see, hey, I sold, 100 of these. I could actually pre-order some, and we could predict, okay, come August, this is what we've been selling the most of. So there was a lot of that happening. And I remember discussions like from our accountant that our payroll, our bill of materials, our dealer history, all that is in the same platform. That's often not the case. Often payroll is done in a different, your QuickBooks are done somewhere else. You have different. And I remember that was a discussion early on that I wasn't maybe as familiar with, like, that's actually not common in some cases where the platform does all of it. So then I think probably the biggest thing is watching you guys. It almost like you grew with us. In a lot of cases, Jake and Ken would spend time on site and say, man, I think we could develop a tool that would do what you guys are asking for. We've not done it before. Would you allow us to do this with you or create this test model? So I think you guys, your willingness to, and maybe I'm getting ahead of the question even, but you guys were so adaptable and quick. Jake and Ken thought anything was possible. I almost laugh sometimes that Ken would like, there's no way you guys could do that,
Yeah.
But anyhow, I might have ran ahead of you on that. I just kind of
No,
ran together.
no, that's great. And thank you. It's funny, in my role as a product leader now, it's kind of my job to imagine and hear, well, what if EPMS could do this, it would be transformative. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I'm always looking for the collection of nuggets that we can stitch together and make the next leapfrog in ERP. But it is an interesting insight that you highlight this stitching together the elements of a business into a single platform and how that transforms your ability to bring synchrony between your financials, your HR payroll, your sales, and your manufacturing and operations. That's the superpower of an ERP, I think.
Yeah.
And you're all's taking that, run with it, and then building on top of it is pretty impressive. How do you think the decision to invest in EBMS, to adopt ERP, has shaped your trajectory as a business? So there is the other version of the story where you have a bunch of different competing ecosystems for your different functions in a business, but you all chose to adopt EBMS and you've grown as such. But how did that impact your business? What was the result of that based on where you started?
That's good. I think part of our culture as a family, a small business, we had to run very lean at times. So our dads grew up wearing a lot of hats. They were owners, but they worked in quality control, or one of them worked more in manufacturing, while the other worked more on the interface of the sales side of it. But I remember early on, I worked in quality control till the phones would start to ring. Then I'd move to the office, and then we would work on the customers. And then at the end of the day, we would go back out and help finish. So having to wear a lot of hats, we didn't create maybe the best processes or standard operating procedures and all. And so having a software that actually generated reports, kept track of what was going on, we could see history, we could go back and reprint things, because at that point we were very limited what we would be able to give to a sales team to make any. They were used to getting reports and like projections and what did we do last week, and we had very limited resources. Even when we first started with you guys, we weren't taking advantage of all the reporting and the automation. But I think that helped us control the chaos maybe in those years. As we talk about the growth and our ability to do about anything, and we love to create. So we almost have a problem with trying to create too much. So Deke calls and says, "Hey man, you think you can make this metal gate for the front of my yard that looks like this?" And we're like, "Yeah, I think we could, but we probably shouldn't." we got a lane that we need to stay in and serve our customers. So we almost tried too much. And so having software to keep a little bit of the chaos and the confusion down helped allow other people to start to jump in and enter orders and take care of customers, because it didn't have to be me at that point that only knew how to write something up. The dialogue boxes that came along that created consistent ordering, documentation. So I would say it helped us grow and keep some of the chaos down, because of how we kind of ran our business sometimes by the seat of our pants. We just had to react to things rather than plan.
Sure. Yeah, and I can imagine that as you're refining the operation and you're able to bring that consistency, you can grow in the lanes that you're consistently operating in, which makes the temptation to do, albeit creative and interesting, thing less lucrative or less necessary to contribute to that bottom line.
Absolutely.
That's great. So what are some of the challenges, big challenges you face now? What's going on in the world of Stoll? Either growth challenges or just how are you all encountering the business world, and what are you doing in response to those challenges?
Good. I would say we have a couple that we're facing right now. It's through the years we watched as we've grown to a level and then kind of platformed and got in position for more growth. Well, staff is one of the things in like technology or machinery. But there's usually a constraint or a bottleneck that kind of is stopping it. But it's interesting to find where you grow to this level and then you need a few more people because it's just getting almost overwhelming. But if you add too many people and the sales aren't quite there to offset it, or is growth going to keep happening? So I've seen ourselves go through 3 or 4 of those in the last, 25, 30 years. I feel like we're again at a cap where profitability and planning, we've got the infrastructure and the people. But then watching some of these new industries grow, like to know, like we've never been in 10 years in the kitchen and bath world. So we don't know what some of the big swings in the trends. So we're but I would say that's part of it. We're kind of in this profitability spot where, okay, we're ready to go to the next level. We have some people in place. How does it look to get out in front here and get in front of the people? But I think the second thing that we also touched on was, as a family, historically, we just have worked really hard and wore a lot of hats. And we're realizing as we empower our leaders to step in and take over departments that we really don't have a standard operating procedure for them to learn. Like, okay, so what does it look like to be Gary today? What does it like to run sales or customer support? And so because we ran and just did the things ourselves, we're at a spot now as a company. We really need to take a lot of time and write up processes. What does it look like to do service that customers at Stoll? What does it look like to be a dealer for Stoll or a sales rep? There's just a lot of processes we need to write. So we're in that stage right now of really getting the SOPs lined up here and get it where people join us. It's not this real odd, long learning curve, because how does Gary think? What is building production? What does it look like to be a production manager? So that probably, I would say, is one of our bigger challenges.
Yeah, that's it. It's good. It's an interesting one that I think is probably more common than not. I bet listeners across our audience will go, oh yeah, I have to think about hiring somebody, but I don't even know, like, I just do this.
Yes.
I don't even know how to do it.
Yeah.
How do I teach someone to do this? Or where am I going to find time to teach somebody to do this thing that I'm doing as one of my responsibilities? Even at Koble, when I was doing implementations and we'd bring on a new consultant, it was always this interesting dance of, I need to teach you how to be consultant while also being the consultant. And there's both.
Yeah.
We're hearing a lot about tariffs today. It's hard to get a news cycle that doesn't say tariff equals this or that. How's that affecting your all's business? Is there something is it impacting at all? If so, how are y'all responding or managing that?
A good question. Most of our steel is all stateside, American made. That side of it, we're not seeing a lot of tariff issues. However, just word tariff in the industry seems like it spikes price increases and changes and concern from about anyone. But probably our biggest one would be some of our hardware and small components would come from overseas. So we're seeing an increase in some of that. More closely or more directly, we are actually in the process of setting up our own glass manufacturing facility. So that's the one we have bought from off-site. And it's been one of the things that's been a kind of a limitation on how fast or how well our service can be, because we're at the mercy of a glass factory. And so we've purchased our equipment from Italy. So it's on the boat coming now. And we just got word the tariffs are changing the price because it's coming in. And so we got a kind of an astounding price adjustment. So while I believe tariffs and leveling out the playing field is all very important, it's like, okay, that hit our glass equipment. That's kind of a different line of it. We do get questions from our Canadian customers, some of what we're going that way now, their government is changing. So I don't know. We'll see. We put a temporary price adjustment in about a month ago. Instead of doing a big annual change that's going to be in effect for another year, we did a temporary adjustment, like a surcharge, to kind of let this all float out a little bit here for a couple of weeks, months, and just see, hey, is it going to settle down and where we can lock it in? But all in all, I feel like we're in a pretty good spot with it. It's not like everything we have comes from overseas. Right. The good part is that because we're American made, a lot of our dealers are saying, hey, I've not sold your fire table before, but my other suppliers from China or somewhere. Can you tell me more about your line? I may be interested. So I'm
Right.
going to create some interesting, within the States, a lot of energy and passion in our product line that maybe was a little, was off site before, offshore.
That's good. Yeah, it's always interesting, dance, because in your case, it's not just maybe some machines coming in; it's also your products going out.
Yes. Yep.
As you expand your market.
Mhm.
Yeah, complex. It's also interesting that you're again. It seems to be the theme of the culture of who you are. It's work hard, honor your customers, honor your suppliers. Um, Grow in ways that make your customer experience better, that serves the community better, and also maybe be measured in your response to the situation, which is kind of what I hear a theme there is that you're not being an alarmist, but you're not putting your head in the sand either.
Yeah.
There's some kind of
That's good.
tension.
Yep. Very good point.
What's some advice you would give other businesses in the manufacturing world that are maybe facing tariff challenges, maybe facing growth challenges where they're hitting one of those plateaus and they're trying to have to figure out those dynamics of how do I traverse this unknown space to the next level?
Yeah, that's good. I think one of the things that came to my mind when I thought of that question was back to relationships again. So through COVID and through tariffs, through different things, especially our steel suppliers, they've come to us saying, "Hey, we've got you covered." During COVID, they asked, what our consumption will be. They're going to set aside material for us. But part of that comes because of years of relationships.
Mhm.
So we've not jumped all around and looked for price only. We look for a partner that can play, that will be solid with us from day one through the good and the bad. So we've paid maybe a little more for some supplies at times, or maybe could have got a little faster from someone that just stopped by and had a special promo, but we didn't go back and forth with these. So it felt like these main core suppliers were with us. So
Yeah.
when things hit, when the tariff worry, they're here saying, "Hey, just helping you plan out for the next couple of months. This is what we're hearing. We're here to help you. We'll communicate if it's change coming up. We'll put some steel aside." So I think it's build strong relationships and partnerships with your vendors, because that's a part of the strength of who you are. It's not just about us. We're as good as our suppliers are. So if I've got good suppliers, through COVID, we were one of the main companies in the hearth industry that actually our production times almost improved. We had almost no delays on any product category. So when our reps would go in, they would say, the dealer would ask, "Okay, what brands do you have that have product? Who can produce right now?" And they say, "Well, Stoll can produce. They're full capacity, running smooth." And so that was just a shout out to our long-term partnership. So I would say, be careful that it's not just about price. It's about the partnership you're creating for a long term. What else would I say to a manufacturer? I don't know. I guess surround yourself with good people and never be too proud to keep learning. There's so much wisdom around us. And so if you think you've kind of figured out, like we had that happen. We've been doing manufacturing for 50 years. Our dads were good at it. I felt like they were like no one. Like lean manufacturing would come by and give their card and say, "We'd help you look at your manufacturing." We were like, "You have no idea. Our dads are like geniuses. They just figured it all out. We've got the systems." But we actually brought a lean manufacturing coach in about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Transformed who we are. Totally transformed.
Amazing.
And pride can say, "We know what we're doing. This guy has no idea." And about 3 days in, our production manager's like, "If this guy would just leave, we'd go back to doing work. He has no clue what we're doing."
Yeah.
Day 4, it's like the light bulbs came on. And that next week, we started making big time changes and decisions that have changed our production and our capacity to serve our customers. So don't ever think you got it all figured out. There's always something to learn.
Yeah. I have a couple of versions of that story where I was the production manager, and it was that day 3, day 4 period in a process where I was super skeptical. And it was like, oh, now I'm a disciple. I'm the evangelist of this.
Yep, exactly. That's so good.
Yeah, being the continuous learner, being open-minded, and that partnership piece is big.
Yeah.
I've heard from other manufacturers where it's the consistency in production, it's working on yourself, and in doing so, that commitment to the partnership opens the door for growth opportunities that it's just hard to do when you
Yeah.
have other,
Yeah.
if you're always fishing.
So good.
Yeah. So I looked at it seems like I'm going to say we're going to dive into some culture questions about Stoll, though your culture permeates through your entire operation, which is, I think, the goal of the family and the goal of the business. So it's kind of a false pivot, but maybe more the focus on building that. And the thing is, because you have a distinct culture and such a strong culture to the point where you have workers in videos on your website talking about being part of the family, even though their last name isn't Stoll,
Yeah.
which is brilliant and beautiful. It's not an easy thing to do. So how do you do it? How do you define it? How do you grow it? How do you extend it through your operations, through the running of a business? Because you're clearly doing more than that.
If I knew the answer to that completely, I'd want a book and sell it. That has been a 55-year journey, and it feels like every level of that we've had to learn how to grow or adjust so that we could take the culture with us while still trying to get better at who we are. So we've actually had, even as hard as we try, you know how it is. You disappoint some, you make innocent mistakes, you assume everyone knows what's going on, or you overlook something so basic. So we're far from perfect. I just make sure that we all know that, and our staff can tell you. But we do try to be a team, go as a team, finish as a team. Well, one of the things I think that we're working with is how to go from 15 team members to 45 team members to now we're right at 100. Well, some of those people have worked with us for 25, 30, 35 years. They've seen a lot of that change. They've seen us be a 35 employee, and it's a personal level. They can come and go with their kids for school. The schedules are more relaxed. Well, you move to 100 and you got the big orders and the demands, the New York jobs. Well, now it's not as flexible just to turn the powder coat oven off for half a day and go pick up your son and do whatever. It's got to be some planning here. So things like schedules and start times and point systems and honor systems, like that started to come in. Some of the team was like, well, this doesn't feel like the same family I was part of. Like, what's going on? Like, are y'all going corporate? And so we had to keep taking everyone with you. Okay. You try to communicate, like over communicate, over explain, but also allow them to understand, like, hey, we're no longer a team of 35 that we kind of all can do the same thing. We kind of overlap. We have very complex situations. We have machinery that need to run 12 hours a day. If we just shut it down, it shuts down the rest of the line. So that's probably one of the difficult things. And so I think communicating every Monday, we have a big company plant meeting. Everyone's in normal updates from last week. We talk about the week coming, but I believe you have to live it yourself. And so as a family, where grandpa started it, and then 2 of our dads ran it, and now 4 of us run it. There's a lot that comes in that. So I think history would say second generation kind of works. Third generation, there's like low percentage of businesses that actually make it. And fourth generation is just like, there's not even hardly data on that.
Right.
Well, we've got 5 or 6 of our fourth generation already working here, helping elite departments. But in all of it, it can be lost. It can go into where it's about production. It's about the commitments we've made. It's about even your plant manager, or your sales manager feeling differently or looking differently than Stoll. And so we got that question. Dealers would call and say, hey, this new staff member is doing a great job, but it doesn't feel like Stoll, can you tell me what's going on? So it was very important for us to say, okay, Joe, Sally, whoever is stepping these roles, this is what it looks like to be Gary. You're not Gary, you're not family, but to be part of our team, we want you to carry this heart. When you answer the phone, you're carrying the heart of the family. And so for them to do that, they got to feel like they belong. They got to feel like, hey, I'm part of this family. I matter. My voice counts. Well,
Hmm.
so I think bringing all that back around, I believe what I'm learning every day, but what I'm trying to do a better job at is the people at the table with you carry so much. So
Mm.
Stoll Industries does not have all the answers, and we've messed up at times. We've hurt people. We've gone back and made things right, but even at your best intention, you're going to let someone down, and so there's misunderstandings that can happen where people just, it's better if we just leave. But if we can always leave with having that person's interest in mind, having their heart, these are people we're working with. It's not just machinery where you just trade it out for a new one. These are
Right.
people that matter, that came here for a purpose. So I think we're doing a better job of pulling our people to the table and saying, hey, this is what we want to do. Do you
Yeah.
have put, this is who we want to be. We realize we all look at it differently. How can we come with a core value and a common goal of
Mm.
doing this well every day where it feels like Stoll? Because the people around you can make Stoll better. We would be so much less than who we are now without our team. It's
Mm.
incredible. So I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
going to answer your question.
No, you did. You absolutely answered the question. And what's interesting to me is you let off with the idea, like, if I had the answer, I'd have a book deal.
Yeah.
And what I think you might not know is you have the answer, and yet your posture is that of a learner. So the book deal is an ever evolving, like the concept is an evolving answer to an evolving question.
Yeah.
Um,
I would have
yeah,
to
that's
say more on that too, because you stirred a thought in me. We've had a lot of people come through then to help coach, consultants, our sales teams would come through and say, you guys are amazing. Let me help you, you know, go to the next level. And if you weren't careful, what could happen is they'd come in and they would almost start to make us into what everyone else was, you know,
mm,
more like you got to make rules. You got to tell those dealers they got to get their orders in. If
right.
they don't, you're not receiving. Well, we've always been more of a relationship. Oh, so Sally was sick and couldn't get her order in on time. We'll give some grace on that, you know, that
Mhm.
price increase, whatever. So without them knowing or trying it, they would try to make us get systems and hold people accountable at a level that maybe started to turn us into who everyone else was, that they said
Right.
they loved that we were different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
And some of the coaches would come in and say, you guys are doing something really special here. And I'd love to help you grow to the next level. And you just have to stay alert. If it's outside of who we are, we have to be careful, even if it is maybe a better or a proven structure
Right.
or process. We had to be careful that we didn't just go to that and leave who we are.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's a powerful insight, because I think the challenge with the consultant is, and having been one, is we come with a toolbox and assumptions and our human tendencies as well.
So good.
And the recipient is a co-collaborator. If they're just a receiver, it doesn't ever quite work. And even recently, I was reading some books about product development, and the last chapter was, you're probably not going to implement this just the way we've done it. So we have some thoughts about things you might want to consider as you're exploring some of the principles we've given, which is pretty nuanced and insightful to say, it's not, here's the recipe to make cookies.
Yeah.
It's, here's some tips we have on how to run a kitchen.
Yeah.
And you might try some of this to
Yeah.
figure out if it works
So
for you.
good. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah. So as we get close to the end, there's a couple more questions. And one of them is, you talked about this growth of growing from a 35-person company now to over 100. And you've been doing this for 50 years. And then there's 50 years from now. Are there any specific things that you would say, hey, like, as we're building our company, we're building our culture, we want to protect the Stoll name. What do you imagine 50 years from now being?
Wow. That's good. One is we want to see our kids take it and run it. That's one thing I think the Stolls have done a good job. Grandpa empowered his sons to take it and like what he had and go to the next level. You know, there was things that they wanted to do and he'd be like, you sure that's a good idea? But he released them and pushed them to go after more. Our dads did the same thing. They never had lasers and the technology that we have available to us. And so all the way through, it's been humble growth and humble beginnings and grow within your mean. But they pushed us like purchase a laser. If that's going to make you better, it wasn't that we never had a laser or don't get a laser. So I think every generation is going to push. And then now our kids are coming along and saying, okay, Dad, or what are y'all looking like for my crew? Or like, are y'all going to be interfaced on the phones and apps, and like, what are you making that our generation is going to go after, and the technology, and the online platforms? So I see them taking it now and going again, but it's all about working in, getting in the culture, believing it. So I think part of what we've done is taken God to the workplace. From a real Christian standpoint, that's our background, is to take God with us wherever we go. So we've done that in the hearth industry. We made some great impacts and changes there, or like just, gave people hope. We now are hitting the kitchen and bath world, doing the same thing. And then the outdoor living worlds. But then we just got back from Saudi Arabia and being over in the Arab nations and looking at partnerships overseas. And what does it look like to take the family, the culture of hope to an international level now? That's like thinking really big, So if that continues to grow, I just believe that there's more people that God wants us to touch, and whether it's selling product or just interacting with them at shows or conventions. I see that probably more than I can tell you what our growth would look like. We always want to grow. Growth is not about a means to an end. Like, it's not our only thing to be an X amount of company. It's about being as big so we can have effect, because every product we sell, we have our own nonprofit now, Stoll Cares, and every product we sell, a portion of that goes to give back to international, to local city transformation, to ministries all over. So we're able to give straight from our nonprofit. So naturally, if growth comes, that means the kingdom gets more as well. So it's
amazing.
It's the ultimate goal of everyone prospering.
Yeah, that's amazing. Incredible. What's some advice you give other businesses? So there's businesses smaller than Stoll, just starting or growing, maybe even some that are bigger than Stoll and kind of feeling that they've gotten to a place and they're not sure how they got there, but the culture isn't what they imagined, or maybe they're like, we're feeling strained. We don't want to dilute, but our company's growing. How do you manage that?
Well, I guess what I'm doing is I'm trying to learn to listen to the people around me a lot more. We do a lot of celebrating what people do well. So we have a term where we honor someone or give an affirmation, build each other up. So I believe that's how you take people with you, or you grow the culture with you. For us, the fourth generation, we're very intentional, and maybe you're going to get to that, but to take them with us is to get them involved now in some of our nonprofit, into what it means to give. And it's not just a job to buy another car for them. They're getting out of college and they're starting to get married and figure out what they want to do. But to work here is to get involved in going to the shows with us. Our dads did that with us early on. We're going to the show, we're helping set up, we're watching them interact. Now our kids are starting to do that. They just start to feel what's going on. They see us interact with staff that's going through tough times, through cancer, through divorce, through all kinds of things. So they're watching us go through that. So I'm not sure if that really answered your question, but I think for me, it is listening to those around you, care for who they are as a person, because if they feel valuable, if they feel like they are, that you care about them as a person, they'll produce more. We all work better when we feel like we're in a spot where we're wanted, we're making a difference. So I think that would be my answer.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And transparently, I think the entire show, the entire interview, our conversation, has been the answer to that question, because the through line of Stoll from the outsider's perspective is a family who accidentally or intentionally stumbled upon an opportunity, but their character and who they were is what the company has evolved into, not the finite widget that is produced out the other end of the building.
Good. Yeah. I would have one more. You gave me one more thought. I think one of the things that we learned as a company is the term "stay at the table." So, because there's 4 of us as owners, and there's times we don't agree on every decision naturally. And so tendency is to push away from the table and say, well, I don't see that eye to eye, or maybe not talk about what's not working or what something feels off, or just a team member, they're not doing well. But to sit down at the table and not leave because of disagreements or belief systems that are differently, or even a different opinion about how something can be done. If you can stay at the table with those people, oh man, you can develop a team that's really unstoppable.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's good. It is so natural, especially today's culture. It seems like just a step away.
Yep, totally.
Cancel, to unfriend, to unfollow, whatever the thing is, to create an ultimatum, some like a non-negotiable, and the secret sauce is always leaning in and getting closer, probably.
Yep. Amen. Yep.
Yeah. There's so many more questions I could ask. I mean, there's part of me wants to dive into the lean transformation, but I think that's its own episode of a podcast with Stoll. So maybe we can do that another time. Yeah. One question I've asked everybody that I've interviewed or I've had a conversation with, and so I want to ask you this. Small business owners I encounter are often readers, learners. They're always, and this is a theme that you've shared, is be open-minded, continue to learn, don't turn it away. There's always growth internally and externally. So what three books you would recommend somebody read? Either things you've read in the past, currently reading, that you wish you'd read, but things that you think would be good nuggets for one of our listeners or watchers to take away.
Wow. So I don't read much. So
that's okay.
When I read a book, it's kind of it's an annual event, No, I have tried to step into that more. One of them would be that has probably changed my outlook on life. It's called Dream Culture.
Okay.
Andy Mason. That's a good book just about dreaming that anything is possible with God, like your job, your work. Like there's so much hope when you think about that. The other one that my wife and I just went through more recently was just looking at, limiting belief systems and all. And that book is called Dream, I Dare You. Again, just talking about taking care of me personally first, so that I can actually have the capacity to dream and to go after, to lead other people. And then 3 books.
It could be just 2 if that's
easy. We've done some transformational leadership. That's more of a class or a process book that you do as a team. That helps us with communication. Just learning out how to pull the strengths and the weaknesses out of people and to use them. So that would be probably another one, that transformation course.
Amazing. Thank you, Gary. Thanks, Gary, for your time and sharing your experiences in the story of Stoll with us. Yeah. It's been fun, a conversation to, again, listen to a family story as much as a business story. And thanks to our listeners for tuning in. Give us a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on today's episode on the place where you get your podcasts. And as always, if you have a topic you'd like us to have covered in a future episode of Taking Stock, reach out to us at marketing@koblesystems.com to let us know. That's all for now. We hope you find today's conversation helpful as you continue to grow your business, bless your communities, and build your team.